The Islanders dropped Game 1 to the Carolina Hurricanes 2-1, but Als fans, there's no need to panic. There's still plenty of hockey left to play in this series. Ethan Sears is the New York Islanders beat writer, and he's on the line to break down Game 1 live from Raleigh, North Carolina. Bring me back some barbecue, Ethan. But we'll talk after. But let's break down Game 1, man. The Canes, they won, but the Islanders pretty much they held their own. I know it was a loss, but what positives can Lane Lambert and this team take away from last night?
Well, Brandon, first of all, thanks so much for having me. And as far as positives, the first two things I would say would be Ilya Sorokin and Matt Barzal. Sorokin was probably the best player in the game, period. He made some huge saves to keep him in it. And as for Barzal, in his first game back from injury, I thought he played pretty well. It took him a little bit to knock the rust off. But the second half of the game, he was doing his thing, flying around, creating chances. And then I would also say at 5-on-5, it was a really tight game that, probably could have gone either way. Maybe Carolina had the better of it, but, very tightly contested and the kind of game that the Islanders can feel good about, as far as their 5-on-5 play.
You mentioned Barzal, you mentioned Sorokin. I'm going to take two questions, put them into one. So in terms of Sorokin, do you think that his play can be sustainable for the rest of this series? And then Barzal is someone who just got back from injury. Obviously, Alexander Romanov is still out. Do you think that hurt the back end, or do you think this team can overcome him not being in the lineup?
Yeah, so, as for Sorokin, there's really no reason to think he can't keep doing this. It's what he's been doing all year. We've been watching it every night where he is just able to keep them in these games, make save after save. And if you look at his playoff history, especially over in the KHL, where he was playing over in Russia, he put up some otherworldly numbers with CSKA Moscow. He won the 2019 playoff MVP over there. So he's got a history of raising his game for the big stage. As for Romanov, I definitely think that injury will made a big difference in Game 1 and will continue to make a big difference in the series. Without him, the Islanders don't really have consistent defensive pairs. There was a lot of rotation last night, and they struggled to handle Carolina's forecheck for a lot of the game. Romanov would definitely solve the first one of those problems. The second one, I think he would be a pretty big help for. We don't know his status for Game 2. It's not clear. The Islanders didn't skate today, so nobody was on the ice. Okay. But he still hasn't skated with the team, so it's a little bit hard to see him playing. But you don't know until you see it.
All right, you don't know until you know. Game 2, like you said, is Wednesday. Pretty quick turnaround. If you're head coach Lane Lambert, what changes do you make?
Yeah, so lineup-wise, I probably wouldn't anticipate any changes unless, again, Romanov is back in. They've had these same four forward lines down the stretch for a pretty good amount of time, and they've played pretty well. So I would be surprised to see them shake things up after one playoff game. The biggest thing for them has got to be trying to figure out a way to generate offense on the power play. It's been a problem all season. They got 4 chances at 5-on-4 last night and just 4 total shots on net in 8 minutes. That was pretty much the difference in the game. It's just not good enough. And whether it means changing up the units a little bit or tweaking something tactically or both, they just got to figure out a different way to approach this, because right now it's beating a dead horse a little bit and trying to continue with something that just hasn't been working. And, this late in the season, tomorrow is game 84, something that hasn't worked for 83 games. It's probably not going to suddenly click now.
Well, Game 2 goes down tomorrow, 7 p.m. Ethan, enjoy North Carolina, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Brandon.